Welcome back. So far today, we've been looking at the names of files and directories. We've been copying files, we've been renaming files, deleting files, and so on, but we haven't been looking at the content of a file. Now, in Windows, we know how to see what's inside a file. We just double-click on it. So, for example, here on my desktop, I have a file. If I want to see what's inside it, all I have to do is double-click on it, and I can see what is inside that file. Let's do something similar, but let's do it at the command line. First, let's go to a place where we have lots of text files to look at, the etc directory. Let me go there and let me type ls, or better, let me type ls-l. Now, the reason why I want to do that is, recall, we can determine file type by looking carefully at the output. We get the file name, we get a timestamp, we have the size of the file, owner and permission. Don't worry about that for now, we're coming to that soon. But the important thing here is that hyphen. That hyphen means it's a plain text file. So I can just, look inside that file. Now, before I do it from the command line, let's do it from the GUI. Let's do it in a way that you're already familiar. We'll go to the root of the file system. I'll just remind you how to do that again. Double-click on Computer, go to File System, etc. We have lots of readable files in there, and let's scroll down. So I'm going to pick a file that we worked with already, the host file. I'm going to right-click on it, and I'm going to open it up with gedit, and there's the content of that file. I can change it, I can save my changes, just like Windows. Let's go ahead and close that and try a similar thing using only the command line. So we can see here, these are plain text files. Let's go ahead and grab that file we were looking at earlier. Let's look at hosts. So the command to look inside a file, let me clear my screen, is cat. So cat and the name of the file you want to see. Hosts. And we see the exact same content. Let me do ls again. The biggest text file in a Linux system is normally services. So let's take a look at that file. So we're going to clear the screen again and do cat of services. And that's quite a bit. And in fact, if you scroll up here, you'll see this is a really huge file. It's about 10,000 lines long. And we're going to be using this file quite a bit in this course. But for now, cat allowed us to look inside the file. Sometimes we want to see a file, but we want to see it in reverse order. We want to see the last lines first and the first lines last. And we do that frequently with log files. So instead of typing cat, type tac, or cat backwards, and the same file name. And you'll see it gives you the output, but this time it gives it to you in reverse order. It gives it to you backwards. Well, maybe you don't want to see all 10,000 lines. We have some other commands we have that will just give us a peek at the file. There is the head command. So if we do head of services, this time we only see the first 10 lines of the file. So it's like cat, but it's not showing us the whole file. It only shows us the first 10 lines. Well, if we can see the first 10 lines, I guess we can also see the last 10 lines with the tail command. So let's do tail of services, and this time we see the last 10 lines. And it's 10 lines by default. You can override that. So if I write head of services, it's going to be 10 lines by default, but I can put -5 there, and instead of seeing the first 10 lines of the file, I only see the first 5 lines instead of the first 10 lines of that file. Now, it turns out some files are not so friendly when you want to look inside them. And a lot of these files are located inside bin. Bin is short for binary. Okay, these are not text files like the files we were just looking at. These are programs that we want to run. Let's type ls to look at some of these files. Notice that programs are green. The other files were black. The plain text files were black. These ones are green. Let's take a look inside one of these files. Like, let me pick this file right here, true. So I'm going to cat it out like I was doing before. I'm going to type the name of the file, and this time I get a lot of gibberish on my screen, and that's not very helpful. But if you look carefully between that gibberish, you'll see there's text in there, and it turns out there's a command that will allow you only to see the text. Let's clear the screen and let's try that again, but instead of typing cat, we're going to use a different command, strings. So strings of, and I believe the file was true, and this time instead of gibberish, it only shows us the text that happens to be inside that file. And that's working with files. Our last lab, that's what for today, that's what we're going to be doing. Cat and tack to see the file forward and backward, head and tail, first 10 lines and last 10 lines by default, and strings. The ode command, don't worry about ode. That's not very important to us right now. Before I close this lesson, I want to show you one last thing. How do you create your own text file? We know how to do that in Windows. Just bring up Notepad, and you start typing text. How you create a text file in Windows. In Linux, well, we have something like Notepad, but it's called gedit. And I'm going to bring up gedit right now. Let's go to Applications, Accessories, and there's gedit. That is exactly like Notepad. That's the Linux equivalent to Notepad. So let me write a short letter. Hello, students. This is a letter. Let me save this to my home directory. Now take a look here. I'm logged on as user 1. So I'm going to save it to user 1's home directory. So this is how I do it. I go to File, I click on Save As, and it took me there automatically. But if it doesn't take you to the place you want to go, just click Browse and go to the top of your file system, go to Home, that's where all the home directories are located, go to user 1, and you can save it right there. So I'll call this a short letter. Notice there are no spaces in the file name. Let's click Save. Let's close the letter. Let's bring up our command prompt. Let's go to our home directory, cd tilde, or cd with nothing after it. Let's do ls, and oops, I'm logged on as the super user. Let me go back to user 1, and let's do cd tilde again. And let's do ls, and there's the short letter that we just created. And we can cat out that letter, cat, short letter, and we can see the content of that short